Good morning, everyone. Welcome into the SEC Morning Report. I am Blayne Gilmer. This is Southeastern 14, your home for daily SEC sports coverage. And man, we are right here at the end of college football season, at least the regular season. We're working our way towards the SEC championship, and we know what teams are going to be in the SEC championship now. After the week 11 results, we're moving on to week 12. But first, we have to go back and examine what we learned about each and every team in the SEC. So we'll do that as we always do here on Mondays. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. And we're going to get right into it after this word from our sponsor here, Bet Online. We have partnered with the Believe Network, guys, and you need to partner with Bet Online. As a result of that, guys, it's where Believe gets all of its odds, its trends, its statistics in terms of the betting landscape, and we love working with them. So make sure you check out betonline.ag, guys. The last of the major pro sports leagues, the NBA, is in full swing now. Also, college basketball is rolling, so there's lots of hoops action for you to wager on. If you want to lay a little bit extra aside on a basketball game, on a college football game, on an NFL game, UFC fight, NHL game, whatever you want, it is there at BetOnline. BetOnline remains your top spot for all your live betting action when it comes to all those different sports, and they're in full swing right now. BetOnline is your number one source for your wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions, all the hoops action that you want, along with every sport available at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to the betonline.ag website today and remember to use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV, all caps, BLEAV, BELIEVE, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. We usually start in alphabetical order. We kind of are with one of these teams. We aren't with another one. What we learned is that Alabama and Georgia will be facing each other in the SEC championship. Georgia clinches the East with its win over Ole Miss, and Alabama earlier in the day on Saturday clinched the West with its win over Kentucky. Now, what we've learned about Alabama specifically is that Tommy Rees continues to call games and adapt this offense to the strengths of Jalen Milroe. Milroe's getting better and better with his confidence of being able to throw the football. Now, when you talk about the way that Kentucky busted on some of those routes and left people wide open, there's not a whole lot of confidence you have to have when it comes to throwing the football, because, I mean, it was crazy the amount of just bust that Kentucky had on the back end. So not real. You don't have to be great when it comes to some of those throws, but what he does is the threat of his legs is what makes those busts be wide open. He'll start to take off to run, a safety will come up, not stay deep, and then there's somebody running wide open on the backside. So Jalen Milroe, Tommy Rees, that Alabama team, I think, continue to get better and better. The biggest thing I think you take away from the Alabama game, 0 sacks of Jalen Milroe. So that was one of maybe the first game all year, I think, they didn't give up a sack. And that's a big deal, because they all year it was, can they protect Milroe? Can they protect their quarterbacks? Caden Proctor, that offensive line, struggling to pass protect. So Alabama continues to get better and better. They were impressive defensively, really stymied Kentucky even without Deontay Lawson, Jalen Key. They had a great day offensively without Jermaine Burton on that side of the ball. So Alabama looks like a team that is going to be a force to be reckoned with as the SEC championship rolls up here. Of course, they still have a couple games left. They get a cupcake this week with Chattanooga, and then they have to play the Iron Bowl, which based on how Auburn's playing right now, and we'll get to them in just a little while, and may not be a cakewalk. Auburn playing some good ball under Hugh Freeze right now, and we know that the Iron Bowl is always crazy. Now, let's talk about the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia, quite simply, in my opinion, with Brock Bowers healthy, Ladd McConkey healthy, Amaris Mims healthy, all on the field at the same time offensively, I think they may be the best offense in the country. They're so dynamic in terms of being able to run the football. Carson Beck makes nothing but good decisions with the football. And you put Brock Bowers on there, like I said, at the same time as Ladd McConkey, and it's a nightmare. You saw that on McConkey's first touchdown. The two safeties go down the middle on the play action fake. Beck fakes it on the toss to the boundary. Tight end releases down the middle of the field. So two safeties go with Brock Bowers down the middle of the field, and then here comes Ladd McConkey in a post, and Carson Beck just drills it in there. Kendall Milton's playing the best football of his career right now. He's healthy. He's running the ball with authority. Daijun Edwards brings the quickness. Milton brings the thunder. It's kind of a 1-2 punch that Georgia has historically had. Two different type of running backs that complement each other very, very well when Georgia is very good. And now you're seeing that out of Kendall Milton and Daijun Edwards, that offensive line. When Kirby Smart said, hey, we're able to rotate 3 tackles and 3 guards through there for the majority of the game and get things going, guys, that's just a luxury that most, even Alabama, doesn't have, to be able to do that. I mean, and be confident in it. I mean, there's not many teams in the country and say, hey, we're going to go in here and we're just going to plan to play 7 offensive linemen and play them a lot during the game. That is a big luxury for Georgia. The concern that Georgia had was with Jamon Dumas-Johnson out, the experienced inside linebacker, and it did show its rear its head early, the inexperience of 2 freshman inside linebackers, C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson. Now, C.J. Allen has played a lot this year, but still had a couple of busts in there early. Those really allowed Jackson Dart and Quinshot Judkins to take advantage of a couple of things. Hit Caden pre-scoring one time when Ray Wilson didn't go with a kind of an out and up wheel route almost there for the tight end up the sideline, and put Ole Miss in position to score a couple early. But after that, adjustments were made, and we saw Nazir Stackhouse, Zion Logue, all those guys in the middle really shut down the interior run game. They played things on the perimeter much better with having Chaz Chambliss play well, Tyke Smith fitting well from the safety position, flying around out there. We talked about how that was a key going into this one. How would they play the perimeter run game of Ole Miss? And ultimately, they were able to just show that, hey, if you are not a complete football team, you don't have it together offensively and defensively, Georgia is going to expose you, and they're going to be able to, do it in convincing fashion. And Georgia played a tremendous ball game, especially that night home environment is tremendous. So Alabama, Georgia on a collision course. They both have business to attend to. Alabama, of course, with that Iron Bowl game at the end of the year. Georgia now on the road to Tennessee in a tough environment, and then they play a Georgia Tech team at the end of the year that you can't just totally overlook, because Buster Faulkner and company have them playing well over there in terms of offensively. They're able to do some things over there. They got to go on the road. So 2 road games here to end the year for Georgia before that SEC championship. So the work's not finished, but now we know who's going to be in the SEC championship game. Couple teams that won't be in the SEC championship game, but I do have a ton of respect for how they're playing at this point in time. Let's start with Missouri. Missouri Tigers really in the second half put the beat down on Tennessee in terms of physicality up front. I think they played with more desire than Tennessee did. They strained a little bit harder. We know Cody Schrader ran harder than the defense for Tennessee was willing to put it out there and tackle them in space. It was not very good for Tennessee in terms of their eye discipline. Eli Drinkwitz and company really hurt them on some of the play action stuff that they had through the air. Tennessee has been very, very rough in pass coverage most of the year, especially with Kamal Hadden out now. They did have 1 pick, but that was because Luther Burden, failed to continue his route all the way across the middle, kind of behind a referee over the middle of the field. But when it came down to it, Brady Cook and company had pretty much everything they wanted. And Cody Schrader, I said this in the predictions we're releasing for Missouri and Florida. He just rolls through people like a Sherman tank, man. I mean, he is absolutely downhill, 100 miles an hour, going out and making plays. This is a guy who was at Truman State, a Division II school, a couple years ago, and now finds himself with over 300 all-purpose yards in this game, 200 rushing, over 100 receiving in this game. Tennessee just got lost, guys, on the back end a lot, but this is about Missouri right now. Missouri is a complete team in terms of being able to stop the run. They held Tennessee to 83 yards rushing. They don't give up big chunk plays on the back end. I mean, Eli Drinkwitz has got these guys playing in such a way that they went toe-to-toe with Georgia at home and really, I think, have established themselves as a legit top 10 football team. I thought that, listen, I thought Tennessee would win that football game, and the reason why is I think Georgia has a tendency to beat people twice, mentally, physically, kind of tear you down after all the preparation that goes into a game to try to beat Georgia, and especially in the fashion that Missouri did. I questioned, okay, how will they be able to bounce back and things like that? But, man, they proved me wrong in terms of their maturity, their ability to – listen, I thought Tennessee would have a little bit more talent in certain positions than Missouri, but Missouri's front, offensively and defensively, dominated that football game. And I think that's the big difference there. And then Brady Cook, Cody Schrader making plays with their legs, and then sprinkling in a little Luther Bird and a little Theo Weiss, the tight end, the freshman tight end over there. Missouri had it all working in that game, and then defensively just continues to swarm to the football and plays extremely well in terms of being able to defend the run first, rally to the football, not miss tackles, go wide open in space. So Missouri, I think you got to give them a lot of credit for what they were able to do this week in Como. That was an impressive win by Missouri. What was another impressive win was the Auburn Tigers. We saw that, hey, they finally found a little bit of the passing game, and this was on the road. I questioned their ability to go on the road and be able to put together 4 quarters of play. Peyton Thorne, like I said, is not eye-popping numbers, 12 of 20, 163, 3 touchdowns, but they found some explosives. They found the ability to, execute in the red zone. They also threw a couple picks. Okay. So they're not immune to, it's not perfect by any means, but boy, did they get that running game going. They rushed for 354 yards against this Arkansas defense that has been a good Arkansas defense. You had Jarquez Hunter go for 109, Peyton Thorne 88, and showed some toughness on one of those runs, lowering his shoulder, running over somebody for a touchdown. Damari Alston got back going for Auburn, and that's a big deal for them. He was hurt a large portion of the year. So that gives them a lot on their attack there. And then the weapons that we said, hey, who's going to step up and provide some big plays here for Auburn in the passing game? Rivaldo Fairweather in the red zone, couple of nice plays over there, and then Javarius Johnson continues to be that target. So Auburn gets this chance to kind of start rounding into form, and don't look now, but they've got the opportunity to potentially finish this thing off with 8 wins, because they'll have the Iron Bowl out there. They got New Mexico State this week, a good football team that they can't overlook. New Mexico State plays a good brand of football, has a good quarterback, but I think they're going to be able to win that one at home, and that'll set up an Iron Bowl matchup with an Alabama team that we said is very good. But I'm telling you, defensively, Auburn is playing really well. They have all year, and then you talk about the offense starting to be able to complement that. Things of that nature. They got it done on special teams as well with Keontae Scott with a big return over there for a touchdown on a punt. So Auburn playing really, really well. 2 teams that got big wins in terms of blowout wins, South Carolina and Texas A&M, but it couldn't be any different how things went afterwards. Okay, even despite a big win, Jimbo Fisher is out at Texas A&M. Shane Beamer's rolling right along and doing what he's continuing to have done the last couple of years, is have South Carolina playing its best football late in the year. They have a big win over Vanderbilt, and part of that is because they're healthy, guys. They had Xavier Legette, they had Amraheem Brown, they had Omega Blake, all healthy at the same time on the field, which hasn't happened for a large portion of this year. They had Simon at tight end be able to be productive. So can they carry that over to a home game this weekend against Kentucky? I think they can. And I think what we learned is, hey, Shane Beamer is able to continue to get his guys to play hard. Now, it's not always going to be pretty, and they're when they play teams that are definitely more talented than them, South Carolina is going to fold like a cheap lawn chair most of the time. However, when it's a team where they're able to bump up their game against, or they're definitely the same or even a little bit better than talent wise, South Carolina can take care of business, and I think that with the Kentucky coming in, that's going to be interesting. But Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher, that record buyout over there, $76.8 million just for him. And then you talk about the buyout for the assistant coaches. This is going to be $100 to $125 million move when you talk about buyout for another coach and thing coming in, all this kind of stuff. Listen, it just never worked out for Jimbo Fisher. They were never able to go forward offensively, modernize themselves. It looked like they were playing in quicksand most of the time. It looked like it was just an offense that was just bogged down in molasses. And even with a nice victory over Mississippi State this weekend, the powers that be, so to speak, decided they'd had enough of Jimbo Fisher, and that era of Aggie football is now over. They'll be paying for it for quite a while. That buyout, like I said, is humongous, and it will last, 6-7 years over there. So he'll be on the books there for the Aggies for quite a while, but they have decided to rid themselves of the Fisher era over there. Jimbo, I'm sure, will be on TV. He'll find some things to do. He'll enjoy that money, so you don't have to feel sorry for Jimbo. But now it's incumbent upon Texas A&M to find the right guy. And we'll see. I think Dan Lanning, Mike Norvell, Mike Elko, Lane Kiffin, all are guys that I would call and check in on. Speaking of Lane Kiffin, he can really design a couple of, a scripted 15, 20 plays to open up a game. He's really, really good at that. We saw the kind of talent that Jackson Dart, Quinshon Judkins have against that Georgia defense. Some of the playmakers, they just weren't able to hit early on a couple of explosives that could have maybe changed the momentum of the game. To Trey Harris, to Dayton Wade, a couple of those guys, missed a couple of opportunities to connect there, but they were able to run the football well early, and then just didn't have the horses to run with the thoroughbreds down there in Athens, those monsters that Kirby Smart has all over the field. Lane Kiffin is a good football coach. Lane Kiffin has matured a lot. Lane Kiffin also has a little bit of the Lincoln Riley syndrome, where he's never had a defense that can hold water, even when he has a really, really good offense. Part of the problem for Ole Miss was, hey, they couldn't really play complementary football and stay in what they wanted to do, because the defense, it was quite apparent early on with the first 4 drives, I believe, for Georgia, resulting in touchdowns, that they couldn't stop them. There was nothing they could do to thwart Georgia's offensive attack. So that takes you out of your rhythm, out of what you're wanting to do offensively, because there's so much pressure that you have to score every single time. I think you give Lane Kiffin a place, and eventually it's going to happen, where he has elite offensive and defensive linemen, and is able to play somewhat semblance of complementary football, and he's going to win big somewhere. But we'll see when that happens for Kiffin. Maybe Texas A&M makes the call, but Ole Miss, I think, has one of the better offenses in the entire country when everybody's healthy. However, they missed some guys on the offensive line after the Micah Pettis hurt himself during the week. The tackle that was in for him to start the game for Ole Miss, he went down after a couple plays there. So you can't be down 2 offensive linemen against Georgia and pretend that you're going to hold up the whole game. They came out strong, weren't able to finish. So that is Ole Miss. Kentucky, guys, against Alabama, just not able to put together any kind of consistency. There were times where they took the ball down the field and had some nice long drives. They scored 3 touchdowns on Alabama, which they're only the 3rd team this year to do that, joining Texas and LSU. So there was some good there. But you can't turn the ball over, especially in your own territory. You got to be better on 3rd down than Kentucky was. And we just learned that, hey, inconsistency among Devin Leary, this passing game, and Kentucky's offense as a whole has been a problem. But I did not expect Kentucky just to make so many mental errors defensively. A couple bust early that really just hurt how they could respond in this football game. Because there were times where Kentucky was able to, like I said, move the ball. There were times where they were able to possess it and end up punching in things in the red zone, but not enough consistency, not enough complementary football. Mark Stoops, you got to question, okay, has he built everything he can build there at Kentucky? Would he even be a candidate for Texas A&M? But I mean, I'm just telling you that he's a good football coach, but the talent disparity is real there. They've got to be able to find ways to get better up front on both sides of the ball, and got to eliminate those just gimmies that they gave to Alabama throughout the day there. Arkansas, another school, we mentioned Texas A&M got rid of Jimbo Fisher. I'm surprised Arkansas didn't get rid of Sam Pittman after the dreadful performance they had against Auburn. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't take care of the football. They couldn't produce anything offensively. And this is just this is an Arkansas team that continues to play poor on the offensive line, continues to just not have its game together in terms of a game plan to be able to protect KJ Jefferson, to be able to be efficient in the running game, and doesn't have explosive plays with the wide receiving core. We learned, I think, that Sam Pittman's time at Arkansas is near to being over. The question is timing when this happens. You got to think that, hey, with signing period coming up, it's going to happen sooner rather than later. I just don't see Sam Pittman being the coach at Arkansas next year. LSU, what we learned about LSU is that LSU has squandered a Heisman caliber type year for Jaden Daniels defensively. Even in this game, they got shredded at times. Graham Mertz was able to throw it all over the yard. Florida was able to run it all over the place on LSU. Defensively, they just don't have the discipline in terms of being able to keep contained. They get lost a lot on the back end. Florida was more physical than them at times. But you talk about on offense, Jaden Daniels, what a performance. I tweeted out, I believe, a couple games in the last season, I said, man, Jaden Daniels is going to be one heck of an NFL quarterback. And people were making fun. They're like, well, who are you watching? All this, he's got all these problems, this and that. But the way that the league is going now, you need athleticism. You need the ability to put the stretch the ball down the field. And Jaden Daniels can do all of those things. He had a unbelievable performance in this game. 700 total yards of offense for LSU. They had whatever they wanted. But like I said, Florida had 488. So LSU played just well enough to be able to stop what the Gators were doing. But they're lucky that Jaden Daniels had a tremendous performance, because they gave up 35 points and almost 500 yards of offense in their own right on defense. Listen, they're not able to tackle in space. LSU isn't, but you talk about they're not disciplined. They had 8 penalties for 63 yards. So some things that you would think Brian Kelly would definitely want to get cleared up going forward. But this LSU team now 7-3, despite having one of the better offenses I can remember, and maybe the best offense in terms overall that I've seen since 2019 LSU. They're that good, or 2020 Alabama. It's that kind of dynamic offense that they have with guys like Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors. I will say this, though. We learned that Josh Williams, he wants to smoke a little bit. He went up there and absolutely laid the Shenandomaki on Derek Wingo, a linebacker for Florida, on a play where I believe it was a little pop pass to Brian Thomas coming around on a little jet sweep pop pass, and he went to the edge and said, "Hello, Mr. Wingo," and popped him right in the chin, knocked that 6'2", 235-pound inside linebacker on his tail, and then told him about it as well. Josh Williams with a monster hit on that young man. That's how you play football right there. That was impressive. In terms of Florida, we'll talk about them. Listen, The talent is just not there. Billy Napier has not been able to turn this roster over enough, fast enough to be able to compete quick enough, in my opinion. Yes, I know that people say, well, he's recruiting well and things like that. It's going to be same song, different verse next year, okay, because they're going to bring in a bunch of young guys. They're probably going to bring in transfer portal guys. How do those guys fit in? And the schedule is absolutely gross. It is so tough, that schedule is, for Florida next year. They have to win either at Missouri this week or at home versus Florida State, who is a playoff team right now as it sits. And I don't see them winning either one, and that's to make a bowl game. And those 15 practices for Florida would be huge for some of the young players they're trying to roll with, things like that. They're in a position where, Graham Mertz, you got to give Graham Mertz all the credit in the world. He's went out and balled out, played as well as he possibly can. Him and Ricky Pearsall, they put it on the line every single time. Like I said, they had some success offensively. They're able to design some things, but the tackling was atrocious. The angles, the ability to play the zone keep, the things like that Jaden Daniels did. Daniels is fast, but I mean, my goodness, nobody's there to play the quarterback at all. They're not filling the alley on the backside. All these just basic football things that you have to do, especially at the SEC level, and continued bust on the defensive side. So Florida is just no other way to say it, but they're a really, really bad program right now, and I'm not sure when that's going to get fixed. The only other team in the East that we got to talk about is Vanderbilt. I don't know that Vanderbilt even belongs in the SEC. I think they should, there should be a vote to just kick them out. They're pathetic. Clark Lee is not the guy. I don't think they belong in the SEC. Is there any way you can just trade Vanderbilt and Michigan? Michigan is ticked off. They want to come in and play in the SEC because they're ticked off at the Big Ten. I think Vanderbilt, they have a lot more success playing against Rutgers and Syracuse and all that. They're just absolutely awful. Can't do anything on either side of the football. So what we learned is Vanderbilt shouldn't be an SEC team. Guys, that is our coverage here of every SEC football team here in Week 11. What we learned about them. We're looking forward to Week 12. We got we'll have our predictions coming out a little bit later today. So like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Remember, we're presented by Bet Online. That's where the game starts and where you can go check out all your wagering news, trends, odds, predictions, picks, all that kind of stuff. Go to Bet Online today. Thank you so much for tuning in here to Southeastern 14. I'm Blayne Gilmer. We'll catch you guys tomorrow morning for another edition of the SEC Morning Report. Make sure to stay tuned later today here for the live show with Chris Lee and Gavin Schoenwald. All of the content here that Blake Lovell is producing for basketball as well. So like I said, I'm Blayne Gilmer. You can follow me on X using @BGilmer18. We'll catch you guys next time to talk more SEC football on your home for daily SEC sports coverage, Southeastern 14.